Thank you, Bhuti. All right, so let's begin with our session today. My name is Gajendra Umat, and this live session is brought to you by Leverage IELTS, powered by Leverage Edu. And I welcome you all to this session where we'll be covering the 10 most common mistakes to avoid in IELTS reading in order to improve your score. So, without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first very common mistake that I see people often making is not managing time effectively. For instance, let's say everybody, I'm sure we all are aware that we have 60 minutes to complete the 40 questions, or we can say three passages. Now, some trainers advise setting aside 20 minutes for each passage. However, it should be remembered that this time management technique is not particularly effective because the level of difficulty keeps going up with each passage. Think about it. If the passages are not of the same difficulty, it makes no sense to use the same time for each one of them. Therefore, remember, it is best that you devote no more than 15 minutes to the first passage, 20 minutes to the second passage, and 25 minutes to the third passage. This is how we have to divide times. Second, not paying attention to minor details. Now, this is another common mistake. Students sometimes do not pay attention to small details. For example, if we talk about instructions, no matter how many tests you take, you should always have this be in the habit of reading instructions before starting the reading question. You can find out how many words you must write in the instruction, and you must strictly adhere to this number. For instance, if you're required to write no more than two words in order to complete the sentence, and if your answer is the population of America, now it would be incorrect because the population of America, that's four words. The correct answer in this situation would be American population. That's within the word instruction. So we are supposed to write two words, no more than two words. American population will be the right answer in this situation. Now, suppose if the instruction is to write no more than a word or a number. So the possible answers in that this case would be either a word or a number. You cannot write both of them. But if the instruction tells you to write a word and a number, then in that case, your answer should have one number and a word. Another silly but frequent error that students make when completing an IELTS reading passage is failing to pay attention to the instruction for true false not given questions. I see it very often. Sometimes they mistakenly end up writing yes, no, not given for true false not given question, which costs them valuable points. So always remember to read the instructions properly and then start with your question. For certain question types, the instructions will also direct you to write the letters rather than words. It will be mentioned that you're supposed to write letters that correspond to the option that you have chosen rather than the words. Therefore, be sure to pay attention to these bothersome details. Now, the third common mistake would be not writing correct spelling. Even a silly typo would lead to a penalty. So be careful when spelling words because it matters a lot. Always refer to reading passage to check whether your spelling is correct or not. You will receive fewer points if you spell a word incorrectly in your response. And choose the correct word form for your answer by being aware of the variations in word forms as well. For example, contribute is not the same as contribution. Contribution is a noun, but contribute is a verb form. So you need to also check the grammatical structure of the sentence if you are, let's say, filling in the detail in a fill up question. If the structure of your sentence is not grammatically correct after you fill in the information, that will not be considered. So for all the fill up type of these questions, always remember to make sure your answers are grammatically correct also. Now, some common mistakes in spellings I see that there are words such as success, possess, assess, access, embarrass. words with double S and double C. People make a lot of mistakes there. So make sure you know the correct spelling, and the way to write the correct spelling is always refer to reading passage. Another thing to keep in mind is that if an adjective is ending in L, the adverb form will have double L in it. For example, if my adjective is normal, the adverb form will be normally with double L. Similarly, you can see beautiful, if it is your adjective, then adverb form of it will be beautifully with double L. Now, the fourth common mistake could be reading the entire passage first. As you know that we have 40 questions that are needed to be solved in 60 minutes. And for majority of the test takers, the biggest issue is not having enough time. This, however, stems from the fact that they do not manage their time effectively. For instance, if I start reading the passage first and if I move to questions later, I will be wasting my valuable time. So here is my suggestion in this case for handling such an issue. Proceed with the question first. Start with your questions first and do not waste your time reading the entire passage. As by the time you come to those questions, like suppose if you start reading the passage first, in this case what would happen, by the time you come to those questions you would not be able to retain most of the information given in the text. Therefore, it is best always to start with questions first. Now, the next common mistake would be not picking the right keywords for scanning. As you're all aware, when you're solving reading test, you would need to scan for keywords. Now, as you read the passage, you can spot crucial words in the paragraph. Now, by crucial words, I mean there are some words which can be spotted very easily. For example, names, locations, facts, and figures. Now, if we talk about names are always going to be proper nouns because which will also be easy for you to spot because they will always begin with a capital letter. Therefore, remember to highlight the right kind of keywords so that you do not waste time looking for unnecessary or unimportant keywords. Now, there are functional words also in a sentence. Functional words which do not carry any meaning, but they keep the sentence together, such as prepositions. To, for, above are some of these examples. Now, if you highlight these keywords, the writer in the text might have paraphrased the information and you might not find the same keywords. So it's always better to start with names, numbers, and some kind of factual information, figures if they are given in the question type. Another mistake that I see very commonly is sometimes people read questions casually. They read it in a rush, and as a result, what happens? They do not pay attention to small, minute details that could change the meaning entirely. So you have to keep in mind that you carefully read the questions before attempting them. You also check to see if you comprehend the question. If you do not comprehend the question, what are you going to find in the passage? Right? Most people overlook important information and they end up losing important points because of it. For example, if we talk about true false not given. Now, if the question in true false not given is all the Indians were tortured by the British. Suppose if this was your question, all the Indians were tortured by the British. And if the information given in the passage reads, most of the Indians were tortured by the British. Now, in this case, what is going to be the answer? Will it be true, false, or not given? Think about it. Let me repeat the question. Question is, all the Indians were tortured by the British. And the question reads, most of the Indians were tortured by the British. Right. Yes, Raghav. This is false. And I hope you understand because the information is contradictory. Now, if you read the question casually, you might end up writing a wrong answer. Therefore, it is always better to read the question in detail and then you find the answer. On our YouTube channel, Leverage IELTS, you can find more information, similar information on such type of questions. We regularly upload videos suggesting strategies and new approaches that will help you understand the question and also solve them quickly. So you can subscribe by clicking on the bell icon for regular updates regarding IELTS preparation.